Welcome to the Political Matrix News. We have the sources, we have the truth from inside the political matrix.
Welcome to the Political Matrix News. Hello, Scott. I guess we're both wearing red.
Hey.
Merry Christmas.
It's MAGA red.
It's MAGA red. Merry Christmas. It's December something today. We got Christmas here coming up next week, and I have no idea what the date is anymore. It's how all the days blur together. But what I do know is that you're my partner here for the last 25, 30 years, I guess, in politics, and we are going to bring to you guys a concept of the consultant's point of view of the daily news, because what you read in the news is not really what it's not really happening, in our opinion, in our experience of seeing everything behind the scenes. Because I was hearing a couple of days ago about Trump was going to announce his invasion on Venezuela about his speech last night, and he did not mention a damn thing about Venezuela or any attack. All he mentioned militarily was giving the troops $1,776 to commemorate the year of the Declaration of Independence of the 20th anniversary, and that's a wonderful Christmas bonus that he gave to every single member of the military.
You know, I suspect he's going to, if he doesn't, he's going to try to maybe do try to make this an annual thing.
Oh, yeah, it should.
Yeah. I'm sure the military would appreciate it.
Oh, they would. It's a Christmas bonus. It's a Christmas dividend, as they're calling it. And, it's great. They deserve it. The National Guard, the military, active duty, every single person in the DOD, all, I guess, 1,450,000 members of the military, as he put it, are going to be getting it. And it's great. And people don't realize this is how you lead.
This is how you lead. For me, I think, first off, I think it's a long time coming. I can't imagine a soldier of any rank that's not going to think that $1,700 is a lot of money.
Especially at Christmas time.
Especially at Christmas time.
It's a perfect time to do it and say thank you for everything they've done for us. I mean, recruitment's up through the roof. I mean, numbers are going high. Everyone wants to pick on Pete Hegseth for everything that he's doing and blah, 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 blah. He's doing a good job. Recruiting's going up. Military morale's going up. Our missions are going clear. We are actually defending America.
Well, they say things in such a matter-of-fact way, like they could say for the very first time that something was true, and they would act like it is already an accepted fact, like everyone knows this,
right.
And we've been saying it forever. And now we're just finally saying it out loud, and that's never the case.
Right. I mean, I was listening to Joe Pags last night. He has a national radio show, and he was talking about the correlation of Venezuela and what the justification would be for us to invade Venezuela. And they were saying that was going to be in Trump's speech. Tucker Carlson was saying that yesterday, and Trump didn't mention anything about it. Now, I do expect him to mention something about that probably in the next couple of days here about us attacking Venezuela. Agree with us going after it and putting the embargo on all the ships and blockading all the ships that are embargoed, that are trafficking oil and everything. I think that's a great idea. I mean, and if we were to attack Venezuela, I think you and I both talked about this on a show a couple of weeks ago. It might have a lot to do with their invasion of our voter rolls and everything here in Florida and all throughout the rest of the country, because we saw a lot of different irregularities throughout all the different states, and who knows what they had to do with it. And if they did have something to do with it, I think that would be a good justification to root it out.
Well, I don't know if they had anything to do with it or not. I don't know. It doesn't look good. I can tell you that. The same Dominion voting machines that we feel robbed our election were used in the last Maduro election.
Yeah, they probably robbed that election.
Well, I can tell you that the people of Venezuela, and I get an earful of this, very regularly, that the people of Venezuela feel that they were robbed, just like we were robbed. And the fact that we think we were robbed, and they think they were robbed, and it's both the same election system, I think there may be some very smoky things happening.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, granted, Fox News got sued, I guess, by Old Dominion for saying that definitively that it was a part of voter fraud. But, however, that was in a jury of peers. That was not a jury of facts. The reality here is that there are a lot of data analytics that point to definite fraud that a lot of people just do not wrap their head around, nor will they ever wrap their head around and agree, because they think, the conspiracies are too conspiratorial. And you and I being on the back end of this, seeing a lot of elections, I think you and I both have been involved in several campaigns, probably at least a half a dozen, that were settled pro or con on our side by 100 votes or less.
Oh, yeah.
Now, as far as 30 votes or less, we've both been involved in at least 4 elections. And that is close. And I don't know many other consultants out there throughout this wonderful nation of ours who have been and involved in that many campaigns that were that close and that tight. We have seen the recounts. We have seen how they recount and how votes and just pop up out of nowhere and how they disappear out of nowhere. And so, I mean, we're no stranger to watching this and seeing how it happens.
For sure. You know, my first election, the first election I was in charge of, was a 13-vote election.
Wow. I had one that I was an Alpha research guy for at 6 votes. And you and I both had the Jesse Casey election when he ran against Wilson Robertson back in 2012. I mean, granted, that was an election, probably a little inside baseball here, but people don't realize whenever you're an incumbent and you have a multimillionaire guy, and he's having a guy who just owns a construction company run against him. They come within 32 votes of winning. And then this last election cycle, we had another race in Santa Rosa County, Florida, where they lost by 32 votes. And I mean, it's ironic that 32 seems to be a consistent number here of how people lose.
Well, I mean, that I don't think is really indicative of much.
It's not indicative, no.
You know, what's interesting is how they, how it's so few votes. I mean, anyone that thinks that your vote doesn't count, well,
it does.
Would your vote have made a difference in that? Maybe, maybe not. Yep. But would you talking it up and not telling everyone I'm not going to bother voting because it never works? Would that maybe affect enough people to impact an election? Yeah, actually, right. It can.
It can. I mean, we've seen races where, I mean, my dad, his last race, whenever he lost by, I think, 48 votes, 50 votes, maybe 148, but still less than a church pew. And the entire, of course, it'd be a big church. But I mean, it's very, very ironic here. Apologize here for, and I have my phone turned on Do Not Disturb, so I apologize for that. But it's very ironic here how people keep talking about these elections they can't wrap their heads around the fraud, but the fraud is real and it does exist.
Well, honestly, I think the real reason for us telling these election stories is to make people understand that when we say that we've seen these things, we've seen this stuff. We've seen it happen from start to finish. When you're a voter and you check in on election night to see how the tallies go, you don't have the perspective that someone does that put out signs in a neighborhood and the signs stayed out for the entire election. In fact, in some cases, people ask you to bring them another sign because their other sign got ruined, and then you wind up with the election day and not a single vote comes out of that neighborhood. Exactly. Now, I would think at least one, the vote for the guy that I had to bring the dang sign back to, would come from that neighborhood. But no, there's none. So exactly. Why is that?
Yeah, we had an election in Alachua County last year in Alachua County, Florida, and the entire neighborhood was a precinct. I mean, the precinct was just one neighborhood. And so in that neighborhood, there's 80% of the houses had the sign for one candidate. On the election day, only 48% of those people voted for that candidate that had the signs in front of, which,
Really?
That basically over half the precinct went for the other person, or nearly half the precinct went for the other person, when over 80% of that precinct had their signs and had also donated to that campaign and actually work and live in that neighborhood where the candidate lives. And the other opponent who got more or almost as many votes is like basically a 51-49 split. They didn't even come to the district or come to that precinct. And so the reality here is not really real. So, I mean, we've seen it a lot on both sides here. And that needs to be taken a look at. And so whenever Old Dominion was suing Fox News for slander and defamation and everything, he lost this huge lawsuit, Fox News did, that ended up terminating Tucker Carlson and terminating other people because of that wonderful lawsuit. Was there really smoke? And was there really fire to all that smoke? And probably there was. And that really, I think, has a lot of the root cause of what's going on here with the narco-terrorism and all the attacks on our children and our health care, because people don't realize drugs is not just an issue here that affects the kids. It affects our overall health and our economy and our overall, I mean, drugs are bad, okay? I mean, marijuana, medical marijuana, that's debatable. We'll actually talk about that a little later. Heroin, cocaine, all the hard drugs, all the opiates that were being brought in and sent to us from Venezuela and funded a lot of it by China that people don't even want to talk about that conversation. About how China's control over the Panama Canal is basically allowing Venezuela to run all the drugs through, and nobody ever really wants to talk about that deeply, about their cooperation through the Chinese government to fund and allow for all the drug use of Venezuela to come to the Americas, as well as Iran. And then you throw Iran in there with China and Venezuela, then you have a wonderful new axis of evil. George W. Bush would have put it back in 2002. We have a real cause here of need to not just invade Venezuela, but to stop what they're doing to their attack on America. Granted, I saw Jon Stewart's take about him making fun of the weapons of mass destruction conversation of how the new WMD is cocaine and Venezuela. And I get that. It is a little silly that the Republicans are using that as a talking point. However, they are correct. There were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, maybe not nuclear, but there were chemical and biological weapons back then. And there are weapons of mass destruction in a medical manner. I mean, basically, nobody really talks about the medical attacks.
And I'm not going to really argue with the Republicans calling it that, because what the Republicans are doing when they do that is they're trying to use a Democrat tactic where there's just splitting hairs, something that is technically, pedantically, just exactly correct. I mean, it is in the strictest interpretation. It is a weapon of mass destruction. Is it one in the traditional sense that we think of as like bombs and stuff like that? No. But Democrats do split hairs like that all the time to get major policy things passed. So their criticism really kind of falls on deaf ears with me about that, because if they just don't like it because it's a tactic that was that's being used on them, that they have as their bread and butter. Like we're violating their patent by doing stuff like that.
Yeah, like whenever we cut food stamps for junk food and everything else, we're making grandma starve and eat dog food. How they draw that correlation, or if we cut anything, it's like we're starving old people. We're not. Nobody's starving old people. Nobody's cutting anything. Exactly. Or remember that video they had a commercial of Newt Gingrich pushing a grandma off a cliff or something like that back in the 90s. I mean, the Democrats split hairs the same way. And I mean, it's called political narrative. And that's what we're talking about from a consultant's point of view. It's how you narrate your argument and how you get to people to understand. And the fact is, what Venezuela and China and all the drug trafficking and all the drug damage is doing with it. I mean, because people don't realize this is not just pure cocaine. This is cocaine laced with fentanyl, and it's killing a lot of people very quickly. And we have got to get a wrap around all of this drug usage. And I think that's one direction that Trump is going here with what he did today with marijuana.
Well, before we get into that, I don't want to get too far away from. Well, and let's talk about that in the next segment, because that's going to be a longer conversation. But just to wrap up on this one, what with this focus on these confiscating these sanctioned tankers, what people don't understand is just the sanctions that Venezuela has been under for so long have gotten so bad that basically the only way that they have to make money besides smuggling drugs is smuggling oil. After we've shut, and I mean, they get 90% of their government revenues now from oil, from illegal oil.
Right.
So by cutting that off, you are strangling Maduro's ability to pay off the cartels, to pay off his in-house little political cadre. All those people, they're cutting them all off. So now how much longer is Maduro going to stay if these people that he's bribing to do illegal things aren't getting paid anymore?
Not too much longer, because they don't even care about the money.
It's all about the money.
I guess to put it into the American vernacular, they only care about the vigilance. And so, and it's just, I mean, it's just sad. And the people are not wrapping their heads around the fact that what we're trying to do is keep America safe. And they're like, oh, we're picking on people. I'm like, no, we're not.
No, but
we're not
you know who Venezuela's primary customer for that oil is? China.
Which, by the way, for those who forgot, they're the ones who launched a COVID attack on America. Yes, I am a conspiratorial theorist. I do think that China did this as terrorism and medical terrorism. Well,
you're entitled to your opinion, and I can't say you're wrong.
I can't say
But
I'm right.
honestly, I think it was, I'm more in the ineptitude. My default move is always ineptitude, ineptitude, ineptitude. Now, you may find out later that it was worse than ineptitude, but and ineptitude is a great reason to fire someone still,
Yeah.
but it's not the reason. It's not what happened.
Yeah. I just had this here feeling that China doesn't really care about or value human life whatsoever on a global scale, and so I don't think they really. I think that what they did was they really did curtail a lot of funding and a lot of resources, and they cut off a lot of heads of the snakes, and they killed a lot of people. I mean, that's horrible.
Well, the other side of stuff like this is even beyond just the ineptitude. With corruption, people. The reason people are so reluctant to buy into these conspiracy theories is that conspiracy theories of the nature that are often described are really hard to pull off.
Right, they are.
But that's only if it is an intentional, guided conspiracy. If it's just a whole bunch of people working the system in the way the system is designed, and the system is literally designed to enable all sorts of misbehavior. And so it just kind of naturally falls into that direction. And once a guy gets successful doing it this way, other people see him and they do that, and they just kind of layer it on top of each other. So it's 1,000 cuts and just ineptitude is what winds up being mistaken often for a conspiracy theory.
That's very true. And you got a good point there, and that could be the way it went. But, the whole issue here with this whole scenario between Venezuela and China and Iran, it's not a secret that these guys are all, in it together. And basically...
Well, they're all desperate for money because they've been under sanction for in some cases, decades.
Yeah.
And so they all have common cause, and it doesn't hurt their feelings that it kind of pokes America in the eye at the same time.
My question, though, is if we attack Venezuela, is China going to respond and defend Venezuela?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't see Iran doing that either.
Well, Iran doesn't have the ability to.
No, they don't. And so I think that, I think we'll see what happens here over the next week, over the holidays, and it'll be interesting to see.
It will be interesting to see.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to let's take a break and get into the next episode or next segment here.
Yeah, I think the big elephant in the room here is about what Trump did today with pot.
Well, that'll be an interesting.
We're
going to take a break, and we'll come right back. We'll be for more news at the Political Matrix. Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Political Matrix News. I'm Scott Miller, and this is my buddy and partner, Greg Fink. And in this segment, we're going to be talking about Donald Trump's announcement today of something that I actually predicted that Joe Biden would do toward the end of his campaign, or at least, Joe Biden's handlers would do. Not that Joe Biden was doing a darn thing, but for a long time, I predicted that that the federal government wouldn't straight up legalize marijuana, but what they would do is the easiest thing to do, which is reschedule it, because for decades, marijuana has been listed under the Controlled Substances Act as a Schedule 1 controlled substance, which is which basically means it's the same thing as ecstasy and LSD and not morphine, heroin and heroin. Heroin kind of ironic since heroin is almost exactly the same thing as OxyContin. It's just a slightly less refined version.
Exactly.
But so today, President Trump signed an executive order rescheduling it from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. And Schedule 3 is basically like Tylenol with codeine.
Right.
Or certain enhanced types of Motrin and stuff like that. Things that don't have a real high requirement for or high probability of abuse, but could be dangerous if not monitored. I think that's still overscheduling it, but, I'm not surprised. The interesting thing is going to be, how is this going to affect all the state marijuana programs? Because while it is going to be now not completely illegal, the states, I think I should have looked at this before the episode. Maybe I'll look it up here in a second. But I think that you still have to have a medical license to prescribe it to get anything legally off of the controlled substance that's labeled on that is listed on the Controlled Substances Act.
Right. Well, I do know also them rescheduling it is going to help them with the medical research of it, where they can use it more for medical research.
And that is what that was Trump's primary narrative. I think I think he's really more saying that as a way of pacifying,
Okay.
a lot of his more religious and more hardcore anti-drug people. But everyone knows that stuff is going to start getting, because it's now on the controlled substances schedule. Then you'll start getting a whole lot of states retooling their medical marijuana programs so that the actual physicians are licensed to do it. So you'll probably make them go through some kind of extra training or something like that, but just make them all basically right now able to prescribe it. And then I don't know what they're going to. I mean, there is such a myriad of regulations, but we are certainly on a path to make medicine, marijuana a medicine. Man, I don't know what's wrong with me today.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I think we're definitely at the very precipice of this entire issue here, and we're going to have a lot of challenges from a lot of courts, a lot of jurisdictions on how this is really going to pan out. And so I think you and I talked about it last night. I think it'd be a lot easier if you just declassified it altogether and just made it
Well, it would.
zero classification.
It would, but
That
I'm
would make it
actually kind
so
of a
much
fan
simpler.
of stepping down. I don't like dramatic changes. I don't think
Well,
dramatic
yeah, that's
changes are
true.
good for society in any way.
That's true.
My initial advocacy was for this method, because if you do it through the Controlled Substances Act, that gives you an opportunity to kind of step it down and see how things go, and
Right.
step it down again, so that you don't have people, out in the Wild West doing whatever.
Right. Yeah, because a lot of states don't have it legal yet. I mean, a lot of states do have medical marijuana legal, and a handful of states, I think, have recreational, maybe like 25, 30. I don't know. I don't really know what the math is. Maybe your AI can tell you real quick on how many have a recreational, how many have a medical, but it's still not 50 states. And so, I mean, that being said, there's still a lot of states who have not partaked in the legalization of it at any level whatsoever, medical nor recreational. So it's going to be interesting to see how those are going to take in effect. Like I said, the state regulatory system on this being, reclassified to a Schedule 3. And so if there's not a stomach for it or not a political appetite for it, and that state is, and the citizens still want to use it, how is that going to work?
Well, I'll tell you, here's my new prediction. Now that this thing's going to be be available as a scheduled controlled substance, how expensive is the pharma business going to make it?
I
How
don't
far
know.
are
I
they going to
mean,
be able to drive the price of it up?
I don't think so. I think last night in his speech, Trump's speech, he was bragging about driving pharmaceutical prices down across the board 300 to 600% on very needed drugs. So I don't think that he's going to allow the pharma or the big pharma to push this price up outrageously. I think it's going to be very consistent with where Truly, even Vitacan, and all the other national publicly traded medical marijuana like Move and those guys are going with the pricing of it. I don't think it's going to be too dramatically, although it could be, because now that's going to be a lot more, the primary focus. But then again, you also have the flip side that there's going to be a lot more competition. So there's going to be a lot more, people in the field. Like I said, the jury's still out. I mean, a lot of it really has to do, just because it's Schedule 3 doesn't mean the licenses are available in all the states automatically. So the states are still having like Florida only had 25 licenses for medical marijuana, maybe 30. Or Colorado has hundreds of licenses, and
Wait.
California has
Who has 25 or 30?
Florida.
No, like 7 or 8.
Okay, well, that's my point, is that we have a few compared to California or Colorado that have well over 100 or thousands of licenses from medical
Thousands.
side.
Colorado, when I was traipsing around Colorado because my partners wanted to buy medical marijuana distributed
Right, I
ship
know.
over there, we found out that there were 3,300, and that was back in 2013,
2010.
2014, 2015.
Oh yeah, I think it's 2013 and 2014. Yeah, that time
Yeah.
frame. Around the time that we were talking about cryptocurrency at the same time as being a flash in the pan.
All right.
Yeah, that's a disappointing thing. I still got an iPhone with 5 Bitcoins on it I can't get into.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to take a look at that. I didn't know that you had that as an issue.
Yeah, remember? Well, it's an Apple II, iPhone 2. That was back in the day of the medical marijuana becoming a big thing as well. And so that whole time frame between crypto and medical marijuana is a very interesting time frame in my life. But that being said, that was when Colorado started doing it. And we had all those issues there with, they had a lot of licenses back then. and I'm sure they got a buttload more now.
Mhm.
But here in Florida, I mean, the whole idea that what Trump did today and compared it with his speech last night, by keeping farmer prices down, I don't really know how it's really going to pan out. But we're all going to find out very soon.
We are going to find out. We are going to find out. But you know what? I read a great article today. I don't know if I forwarded it to you or not. I know I didn't send it that way, but they were talking about the Republican version of the of healthcare, and it was basically health savings accounts
Right.
and being able to have what do they call that, catastrophic care health policies that Obama outlawed, and frankly changing the policy requirements so that each policy doesn't require birth control pills for men and prostate exams for women.
It's a very important thing.
Because even though even though the actual real risk of a woman needing a prostate exam is low, the insurance companies, because they're layering it on there, their actuaries still calculate the full value of the policy as if it was just anybody.
And the necessity of a man needing birth control pills is very low.
Both are non-existent, but they still, for calculating the premiums, that they treat them as if they could happen.
Right.
And so that's just one of the ways that they jack the prices up.
Yeah. But, I mean, with him rescheduling marijuana today to a Schedule 3 and the healthcare savings accounts that he talked about last night in his speech, and I think that's one issue that the Republicans are really pushing. I think the Republicans are on the right side of healthcare and on the right side of medicine. And I mean, I've been a slight critic of Robert Kennedy Jr. with the vaccines and everything else. However, it seems that at the end of the day, they're coming together and everything's making sense and working.
Well, all I know is if the Democrats are flipping out and making very non-specific allegations, and most of what they're talking about is someone being crazy or some kind of personal attack, that
Right.
person's probably right. If the entire Democrat Party if they bother to make the same talking points about someone and just wear them out, then he's probably
We're on the right track.
or at least on the right track. Exactly.
Yep. And so, yeah.
And I only want to say this one time, one more time. In the same way that I can't believe that the Democrats are defending drug dealers every day, I cannot believe anyone is defending pharmaceutical companies and defending the honesty and integrity of pharmaceutical companies. I mean, come on. Really?
I know. I mean, the whole idea that they're allowed to charge the high rates that they were charging and nobody did anything to stop it for the last 4 years.
Well, they built the system so that they could. That's what Obamacare was about.
Exactly.
That's why it was 10,000 pages long, so they could bury all the mechanisms by which the pharmaceutical companies, the the insurance companies, the healthcare providers, so that they had goodies in there for everyone. That's why the specific reason why the Obamacare premiums have gone up 169% since that program was instituted. And it's
Exactly.
ridiculous that the Democrats want us to fix their broken program.
Why would
Not even fix it. They just want for us to pay for their broken program. And it is absolutely broken. I don't know anyone who would
Right.
honestly say that it's not.
And I was going to bring that up in the next segment. We'll go ahead and throw it into this segment here since we're talking about healthcare anyway. It looks like we had 4 Republicans join all the Democrats here on extending the healthcare, Obamacare premiums and their benefits and blah, 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 and all the other bullcrap they're saying. Thank God it did not pass. What Trump called it last night is true. It is the Unaffordable Care Act. It is unaffordable. It was outrageous. The fees were high. The premiums are high. And there's no reason we should be giving any subsidies to anybody for this plan. We need to go ahead and restart the plan and re-get health care back to the people again, not the insurance companies. Because like you just said, it was nothing but a cash cow for insurance. And the fact that these 4 Republicans are so myopically stupid to join the Democrats because they're worried about their voters. Well, if you're, if you can't explain to your voters that
they're not worried for their voters, you go back and look at their campaign finance and see who's paying those jokers.
I mean, come on, guys. If you got, and if you're worried about your elections at home because you can't explain this out of a paper bag, maybe you shouldn't be running for re-election.
They're
You
not
know,
worried about it.
I know
I
they're
mean,
not
just because
worried
they
about
have
it.
one or two crazy people back in their home district that are making a bunch of noise doesn't mean that they pay even a moment's attention to that person. But
Exactly.
what it does mean is that someone's in their pocket.
Yeah, exactly. The insurance companies are making a killing off this, and it's about time the American people started making a killing off this. We need to make sure healthcare is for the people, not for the insurance.
What we're going to find out at the end of the day, you want to know how we're going to pay off our national debt? By cutting all these stupid programs.
Yeah.
The first blow was struck with USAID, and I hate to tell you, probably one of the best metrics for figuring out which programs need to be cut is look at the ones with names like preventing hungry children. The more emotionally charged the name of the
Yeah.
program is, makes it orders of magnitude more likely that it's just a scam.
Exactly. And we're going to talk about that in the next segment about all the political scams and all the governmental scams that have been going on that our wonderful DOJ has been uncovering now. And throughout Minnesota, all the way to all throughout America. We're going to go ahead and end this segment here real quick, and we'll be back here in just a few seconds here to talk about some scamming throughout the nation and fundraising scams. We'll be back. Welcome back to Political Matrix News. Scott, I think you have a little bit of information about Somalia you want to talk about.
Somalia, I mean, the next best thing, which is Minnesota, which is basically Somalia, I guess Somalia is so deeply admired in Minnesota that they want to, make a carbon copy of it in Minnesota.
Now, real quick, who's the governor of Minnesota?
I'm pretty sure that's Tim Walz.
And what was he about to become?
Yeah, the downfall of America.
He was.
Although I will say this, the heartbeat away from being the president of the United States.
Exactly.
Okay, I get that. But another way of looking at it was he was just like Kamala. Because I always contended that Kamala was picked to be VP because no one would want to kill Joe Biden if they knew that Kamala was going to be the replacement. And so, in her mind, who could be worse than me? This guy right here, that guy.
Yeah, the guy who is basically the godfather.
Well, I don't know what his direct involvement in this was.
Governor,
I don't know.
For God's sakes, he knew something.
Well, I'm not saying that he didn't know anything. What I'm saying is I don't think he was like profiting off of it. I don't think he was making money. I think that he was feeding supporters, or more likely ignoring the fact that was going on so that supporters could benefit. But as far as now, he may have benefited indirectly, and I don't know if you could ever prove it. And so far, I haven't seen any evidence that suggests that, but it happens a lot. So who's to say? It's a very at the end of the day, here's where the criticism for Tim Walz comes in. The very fair and undisputable criticism. He was the executive in charge of what was going on. There were numerous whistleblowers that tried to bring it to attention, and they were all punished for being whistleblowers. And he knew about that too, so he did nothing. So, and a lot of them said that the reasons that were given to them for just letting these things go was they were afraid of being accused of being racists. Exactly. So if he, had reason to believe these things were true and did nothing about it, and especially did nothing about it because of some woke DEI justification, then that man ain't qualified to be garbage collector.
Well, my question is, what was the time frame they were bringing all this up? Was it the time frame where he was running around the country making speeches for being the VP, spending over $1.5 billion in 60 days?
Well, it was going on during that time, but I mean, it didn't happen. It didn't happen then. By the time he was doing that, all these things were well underway because this is COVID fraud.
Yeah, kind of what Sheila McCormick is accused of doing in South Florida in Broward County, the congresswoman, of using $5 million of COVID money that she is supposedly, I guess, needed for COVID for one of her programs that she was working on. I guess allegedly she's using it for the campaign fund. I don't know. The jury's still out. She's been indicted on that, so we have no idea what the details are. But it seems like there's a lot of COVID fraud going on in the Democrat Party.
And there
allegedly.
Is. Well, there are, I guess what we can fairly say is that there are a number of prominent Democrats who have been attached to this. who they have said that this was going on, and they are under investigation for it. I probably is the safe way
Right.
of saying it.
So I guess it's kind of like how the Republicans were under investigation during Tom DeLay and Jack Abramoff with the Indian tribes back in the early 2000s. So Democrats are using the same playbook that the other Republicans who nobody wants to talk about anymore, or anybody even remembers now, 20 years later, are doing currently. So, I mean, the point is, it's kind of you and I both say both parties have a little bit to play here with the corruption issue. However, the Democrats seem to be taking it to a whole different level because I think what Abramoff and Tom DeLay and all those guys were accused of doing was nothing compared to. I mean, it was like patty cake money.
Oh
It
my
was like
God,
it was like
a
tens of
million
thousands
bucks or
of
something like
dollars
that.
or $1 million. We're talking about billions with a B,
Billions.
billions, tens of billions. I mean, and then we're talking about, you combine that with all the NGO giveaways that the EPA was doing with Biden toward the end of his administration and the other $1.5 billion that Camilla blew on Oprah and all her wonderful star-studded campaign for 60 days and I mean, we're talking about a whole different level here, a whole different level. And it's being driven by, it's just
Look,
horrible.
look. All I know is that the Biden staff was calling it
Biden
was describing the EPA thing in particular as throwing gold bars off the Titanic.
Yeah, Biden Inc. And now they're looking at they're finally coming full circle and they're having investigations today about this week about the Hillary Clinton and the Comey and all the affairs and the attacks on Trump and the Russia scandal and this and that and that and this and I mean everything really is a big full circle. It really is a political matrix that's one reason why we call ourselves a political matrix. It is a connecting of the dots of the corruption that has been going on from pre-COVID to now. I mean, we're not just talking about going after people. We're talking about billions and possibly nearly $1 trillion worth of scandal and taking away from the American public, which is suffering and broke right now because we have all these revenue streams here that are doing nothing. Like Trump said last night in his speech. Again, I keep prefacing or referencing that. We had a political system where people were getting rich off just hurting the American people. And it's time that stops. You guys come first. All you guys watching come first. And this government has got to put y'all first, period.
Well, we have to figure out a way to make people understand that just because someone is saying something counter to your party, that your party is not guilty.
Exactly.
There are a whole lot more, believe it or not, there are a whole lot more liberals going MAGA than there are conservatives going DEI.
Yeah, and we use MAGA as a very loose term. Now, everybody wants to say, oh, MAGA is like, I mean, there is a MAGA group, granted. But the whole idea here is you do want America great. And if you don't, then leave. Okay, I mean, and people keep saying MAGA is a pejorative or a bad term because we're saying make America great again as if we were never great. No, it doesn't really mean that, you morons. It means that we need to keep America going. If you want to go backwards, then don't be part of the conversation. Don't be part of the growth. We're supposed to be getting better every day. We're never supposed to be satisfied with status quo. You're always supposed to be getting better, enhancing, and continuing to grow. That's what this country was built on. That's what the 250-year anniversary was about, the Declaration of Independence and everything.
Well,
American
at this point, I would be
socialism.
happy if people would simply strive for adequacy.
Exactly. Let's strive for complacency, for God's sakes, but let's
Well, not
don't go
complacency, but
backwards.
adequacy. They have
Adequately.
achieved complacency. They
Or
need to
they haven't
strive for
achieved that.
adequacy.
Yeah, we should not supposed to be going backwards. This is not Russia. We're not supposed to be communism. Communism is all about going backwards, and socialism is all about, one step forward, two steps back. We're supposed to be going 20 steps forward. Keep going.
Well, in my mind, socialism is about people who believe that their ideas are so much better than other people's that other people lack the capacity to embrace those ideas, so they're going to have to be compelled to do it.
Right.
And that's basically the foundation of socialism.
It is. And so, I mean, and it's kind of what Lenin says. You start out with the educational system and you start out with the healthcare system. You get those two things controlled by the government, which are what the Democrats are pushing, and you got everybody right where you want them. And that's the reason why, returning the education back to the states and not having the federal government control your education is very important. Having
The pork
healthcare go
barrel
back to the
buffet.
exactly. Having healthcare go back to the states and not having the federal government control it is very important. Having the federal government control as little as possible over your life and your livelihood and your healthcare and your education and everything else is very important to return it back to the local people and to the local
Well,
control.
I want someone to show me the function that was once private that is now controlled by the government that got better, cheaper, or both.
There's none,
Show,
not one.
just show me one.
Exactly. I dare you. In fact, if you find a comment, because we have a lot of people who are thinking we're stupid morons and everything else in the comment section on YouTube, and that's fine. But please, back it up between your name calling. Please give us an example of which one is better.
Well, no. They can't do that. That is impossible. Because because something rings true in their head when they hear it the first time, they don't feel like they need to learn about it because, well, everyone knows this. It's so obvious that everyone knows it. It's not.
It's not that obvious.
No, when that's your belief, you are on the wrong side.
And in debate terms, they call that a hasty generalization. Whenever you just are basically generalizing something quickly, and it's a wonderful debate tactic. It's a wonderful argumentative tactic, but it's not based on reality or facts.
The problem is that Republicans, we have to argue from a factual basis that we can that we can demonstrate, because if we don't, if we go out there and we say something that is, that we know that is objectively not factual, and our people get behind it, and then start promoting it, and then a few days later, they find out, oh, wait, that was BS. Well, then our people stop listening to us because they don't want to be embarrassed like that. Democrats, on the other hand, they just move on to the next thing because it's part of the battle to get rid of those evil Republicans.
Yes, they seem to have a very very high tolerance for bullshit. The Democrat side, they're okay with it. I mean, the bullshit radar is very low on the Republican side, very low.
The threshold of that, we do not put up with it. That'll get your show canceled quick.
Yeah, you and I talked about that, I think, a couple of days ago, is that how people on the Republican side do not have the patience for all the BS and everything and all the deceit and all the talking points and propaganda. However, on the Democrat side, they thrive off of that. They fundraise off of that. They live off of that. They capitalize off of that, and they don't really give a damn about the facts. They give it more about the emotion of how much they hate the Jews, of how much they hate society, of how much they hate freedom, of how much they hate, drug dealers. I mean, it's all about their hate and their drive about how much they hate Trump, about everything he stands for. They don't care about what thing he did that says he was racist, because there's nothing he did that was racist. They just care about their hatred for him, and it's all emotional driven, nothing with logic or facts.
Right. All they're trying to do is trigger that amygdala, and boom, as soon as you get that little burst of cortisol, then all of a sudden everyone's stressed out and on their knees, and then we'll get a little shot of adrenaline to go with it, and now we are ready to do battle against the evil person. Well, that evil orange guy.
And that's full circle about the Somalia issue in Minnesota. They are defending at the hilt. They're defending these people. They're defending the scams. They're defending the corruption. They're defending all the graft and all the thievery and everything. They're defending it to the hilt. And they're accusing us emotionally as being hateful racists. They're accusing anybody who says that stealing billions of dollars from taxpayers through fake organizations and fake groups and laundering money in a very illegal manner through the government, and they're accusing us of being hateful for saying that's wrong. I mean, it all comes very full circle, and it's just bad politics.
Well, think about this. All right, Minnesota has a population of about 5.5 million people. All right,
like 2 cities in Florida.
Yeah, right. I mean, Florida is 25 million by now, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're like 5 times the size of that. But the size of the fraud of just one of the frauds, and that's the feeding American families or something like that, was in tens of billions. I want to say it was $90 billion. It was a lot.
Wow. That's bigger than Florida's budget. Actually, not. Florida's budget is $120 billion, but it's close.
Well, it's definitely bigger than Minnesota's.
Well, it is. It's definitely bigger than Minnesota's budget, and that is huge.
Yeah,
And
because this
they're
money
defending it.
wasn't state money; it was federal money.
And where's the indictments happening? Is the state of Minnesota indicting anybody? Or does this all had to be
I think
federally
it's
driven?
federal. I think it's all federal because they were federal programs. I think
Well,
honestly, it has to be federal because it's
well,
federal
yeah, but
program.
you got to realize there's probably state laws that were violated in this
Well,
federal
I'm sure that there
law
were.
breaking.
In a fraud this size, there's always
Wire fraud, money
federal
laundering.
laws are violated and state laws. There's no
Yeah,
way to
yeah.
do to not do both.
But the question is the state attorney general going to come after them?
I doubt that.
They are not. And if they are, I'd love to be wrong about that. I'd love to see a state attorney general actually stand up against their own party in their own state against corruption. That would be awesome and wonderful. Be cool if they did. I don't see it happening. I think Pam Bondi's going to take all the heat, and she'll have no problem taking the heat and going after it. Patel will definitely go after the FBI now. The new deputy director of the FBI.
I got a little over enthusiastic. You'll
Really?
never see this on a liberal thing, by the way. I got a little enthusiastic. It's only $18 billion.
Well, we got to walk it back a little bit. All right, for that's just one program, 18 billion. That's still a lot of money, though.
18,
That's
1,
still
2,
a lot of
3,
cars.
18,000, 18 million, 18 billion divided by
Still a
5,
lot of cars.
7.7 100,000 million. So they stole $3,100 from every person in
Yeah.
Minnesota.
Oh, maybe they should get a refund.
Maybe so.
Maybe they should get a tax refund because I'm sure they pay a lot of state taxes in Minnesota.
God, yes.
I'm sure they do. But no, I mean, and that's just another example here of what we're saying here. I mean, and we had the Tim Walz, to the governor over there, and I'm a little more pessimistic on that than you are. I think that, being the governor of Minnesota, he's probably signed off on every single thing that happened. I don't think he did any due diligence whatsoever. Or if he did, it was all scandalous. Maybe, like you said, with the COVID thing, maybe it's all ineptitude and not corruption. Maybe I'm being overly harsh and he was just stupid.
Well, I'm
Or
not going to
just
say that
didn't pay
at some
attention.
level in the government there wasn't some fraud that took place, because I'm positive that there had to be, or it couldn't have been as pervasive as it is. But I don't think that was the driving thing. I think it was a small component of a large bunch of ineptitude.
Yeah. Now, I wonder how much of this is going on in other states. That's actually a really good question, because Minnesota is not the most sophisticated state in the world as far as corruption goes. In fact, they're supposedly just like a regular Midwestern state. I mean, I'm sure Michigan might possibly have some fraudulent activity. I do remember in our little state of Florida, you and I both, we actually called it out. What was it, 10 years ago? The state attorney in Northwest Florida found a lot of the nonprofits had never even signed up with the IRS or even done their paperwork. And instead of him just basically finding all 200 of them, he gave them all like a little nod
Slap
and
on
a
the
wink
wrist.
and just said, go ahead and get your paperwork done the next year or two. But and so, it does happen.
It is definitely nice to have a patron.
It is. But I'm sure this is not only happening there. I'm sure California is probably fraught with fraud at a very high level in New York and Las Vegas and Nevada. I mean, it's just interesting to see if there's going to be a domino factor here. People researching this and finding out, because, I mean, it wasn't just the Somalians. I think they had fake autism organizations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cancer organization. They had fake nonprofits where I guess there's only a president and a treasurer and no people.
Right. And housing was a big one too.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of housing fraud.
Yeah.
Smell it.
I still love California, because it's still being characterized as an official state program. But when your state program to build housing for homeless people costs $600,000 per unit, per living unit, there's no way that's not covered up with fraud.
Exactly. There's no
I
way.
mean, I build some really, really nice places for $110,000 a unit. Real nice. And you can put you can put a family of 5 in there with no trouble. The places they were talking about were basically the size of a container for individuals. You could have squeezed 2 or 3 people in there if they were close.
Well, it goes all the way back to the entire fire issue in California, to where, people who lost their homes in Malibu and Palisades and Los Angeles are spending a lot of money just to get it cleaned and taken apart and to get cleaned up to where they can rebuild again. They can't even afford the permits to rebuild them. And so, I mean, California is just bloated on every single level here, but that's a Gavin Newsom issue. That's hopefully going to go away with the new governor. But we'll go ahead and wrap up this segment here real quick. And when we come back, I think we're going to talk about what are we going to talk about next?
I don't know. I don't know. I thought we kind of covered everything.
I think we did. I think we covered everything that's fit to print today. And so you guys, thank you for joining us, and follow us on the platform of your choice. We're on all of them, and we appreciate your comments and your likes and your subscribes and shares. Y'all have a wonderful evening.